Okay.
Good. All right. My name is Ed Nardi, Chair of the Natural Resources Commission, and I am calling this public meeting to order at 7 p.m. The meeting will be conducted virtually to ensure, will be conducted as a hybrid.
Sorry, that's from
To-
last November.
To ensure public access to the deliberations of the meeting, the public may access this call through video conferencing or telephone. Following the presentation by the petitioner and questions from the commission, members of the public will have the opportunity to ask questions and provide public comment. Please identify yourself with name and address for the record. You can also raise your hand from your phone by dialing *9 and use *6 to unmute. All video screens will be turned off with the exception of the commissioners, Delia, and the current petitioner. Once the commission has acted on an application, the petitioner is free to leave the meeting. Screen sharing will not be permitted unless necessary, and all votes will be taken by roll call vote. In the event of any technical difficulties, all matters on the agenda that have not been heard will be automatically continued to the December 27th NRC meeting. To note, this meeting is being recorded. At this time, I would ask the commissioners to introduce themselves.
Bill Kameza.
Sarah Brummer.
Okay, thank you, guys. We have three tonight, with the quorum. Let's see. First order of business is public comment. It'll be a 10-minute period. It's limited to matters that are not on the agenda this evening. And just as a special note, I know we received one concern from a person that was on the Zoom meeting last hearing, that they couldn't hear some of the deliberations. So I would ask if there are public comments from people in the audience this evening. If you could speak up so people on Zoom could hear your comments, or that would be appreciated. All right, so with that, are there any public comments on other matters other than the agenda?
So I think this is not on the agenda. I wanted to make a comment about Warner's Pond.
Well, Warner's Pond is on the agenda.
But not about the task force. So,
It is about the task force.
but I'm not referring to the task force.
I think if you could hold things for anything Warner's Pond, that would be appreciated.
Okay.
Thank you.
That was my question.
Yeah, thank you very much. All right. Approval of the meeting minutes from September 20th, 2023. I had a couple of I think 3 minor kind of comments, typos, etc.
I thought it was fine.
Okay.
I sent some editorial comments.
Okay,
Thanks.
so we could have a motion
Sure, I move that we accept the minutes as amended.
Second?
and we'll take the vote. Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. Commissioner comments this evening.
Nothing for me.
Nothing for you, Bill?
Not for me.
All right. Get to my notes. No, I think we're all set. Delia, director's update, please.
Yes, just 2 things. One is regarding two conservation restrictions that are related to the Assabet River Bluffs parcel. And so let me just share my screen so you have some context of where I'm talking about. You are all aware of the Assabet River Bridge pedestrian multimodal bridge proposal that is meant to cross the Assabet River in this location. This is the commuter rail here. This is Concord Park here. And this is 300 Baker Ave on this location here. And I should have this on the conservation restrictions later on. Both Concord Park and 300 Baker Ave are covered by portions of those sites are covered by CRs that are shown in hatched green, and they both allow construction of a bridge and a pedestrian footpath. But the community has expressed interest in more of a multimodal paved bridge and path crossing in this location here that would serve multiple members of the community. And so that is a tough sell to have something like that in the conservation restrictions. So we will likely be talking to the state about amending both of these conservation restrictions to exclude the area of so probably, about this area of those, both conservation restrictions would be amended to have that taken out. And then we would talk to CHDC about placing, because we don't want to have a loss
Mm,
Good
of
point.
that conservation restriction land. And so we would talk to CHDC about putting in, some portion of this land into conservation restrictions so that there's no net loss of that. But I just think that makes it, a cleaner process to have that Assabet River pedestrian multimodal bridge go in that location. So that's one thing. And then the second thing is that I will be presenting with a panel of people to talk about Warner's Ponds at the League of Women Voters on Friday,
Mhm.
10 o'clock at the library here in the Goodwin room. And it will be Allison Field Juma from Oars, Anna Feldwig from the Friends of Warner's Ponds, John Coleman as a resident, and me to talk about, where things are with Warner's Ponds. So
Right.
and have that be recorded? It will be, but yeah.
question for you on the multimodal paths, going back to the first issue. How wide are those?
So
pathways
typically they're
usually?
10 feet wide,
Okay,
and that's wider than what the CR is. They're basically, I think it's 5 feet in the conservation restrictions, and they're unpaved.
Yeah.
Paths in the CRs.
oh, I see, right, it's for accessibility and everything will be paid,
That is right.
okay, thanks,
I remember something that I wanted to bring up.
please,
Is that okay?
yes, it is okay.
At the CRC yesterday, there was a question, the Community Conservation Committee, there was a question about the funding that you had for the dredging of the pond. And the understanding was that you were just going to hang on to it so the funding was there when it was needed. But the question was, does that make sense since we still don't know yet whether it's going to be dredging or not, would it be better to have it back in hold? You just wanted to be sure that you thought that through and what made sense.
So I think, yes, that's a good
Because otherwise you
question.
might have to wait a whole another year to get it released again.
Right.
If you have to.
And I think that is, where things are now with the NRC proposal to hold off on a dam removal warrant article for 2024. That CPC money that is right now dedicated to to dredging, to improvements at the boat launch, and to additional studies. That will, that money can do it. We're using the additional studies piece of that to look at it, work that's underway right now. But to me, it doesn't make sense to expand that, as I had thought about doing, to include dam removal and additional recreational improvements until we really have that teed up for something, for the town to consider at 2025 town meeting. Yeah.
So maybe follow up with Anne to determine what needs to be done then.
I don't think anything needs to be
Nothing
done.
needs to be done. Okay.
I think
just
it's
leave it.
It's in essence being held in escrow, right? That may not be the appropriate term, but that's
it's been approved and appropriated, and
for
for
specific
certain
need.
purposes.
Yes.
So if it's still needed for that, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
If it's not, then we'll have to do the whole cycle.
Right. And
Okay.
And I think that'll be something in 2025 as
Okay.
well. Yeah.
Thank you for confirming. Just wanted to check.
thank you, Sarah. All right, so I think we have one continuance this evening. Bill, you want to take that?
Sure, I move that we continue without discussion the notice of intent for 166 Commonwealth Avenue, DEP file 137-1643.
Second.
All right, in the vote, Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. All right, so we'll move on to our first continuance this evening to be heard, and that is for Cross Point Associates. It's a notice of intent, 768 Elm Street, DEP file 137-1650. And who do we have with us this evening? Oh, here we are. How are you?
Good evening, Brian Butler here of Oxbow Associates. Also on board is Kerry McCormick from Cross Point, the proponents of the 768 project, and I believe is Brandon with us too. Do you know, Kerry?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Okay, I couldn't see you on the header there. This is Brandon Lee from Kelly Engineering, the PE for the project, and we think we've got, and thanks to Bert for advancing us with the items of interest still outstanding in the minds of the commission that he provided to us, I think, yesterday.
Hey, Brian.
And maybe Kerry, do you want to explain this has been largely a back and forth with the planning board.
I'm sorry, Brian.
I'm sorry.
I think we're having some trouble with our speaker. Carrie, can you just say something to see if it's our speaker or?
Sure.
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Minute.
Switch screens here.
There we go. That's the way hitting.
That better?
A little bit,
A
not
little
much.
bit.
Well, we can probably make it with the static. We just wanted to determine
Yeah.
if we could have done a
That-
little bit better.
Is that something that?
Can the audience make it out?
Folks in the audience,
Better now, but before it was up.
Okay.
If Kerry was coming in good, but I'm not, I could drop out and come back in, or does it seem to be universal?
I
Universal.
think it's us.
Okay.
Muddle through it. Keep up and keep moving.
Talk slower, does that help?
Yes.
Yeah, enunciate, I guess, would be the word of the day, huh?
Can we share screen? Is that okay?
Sorry, yes, let me just give you that. Okay. Go for it.
Kerry's going to share, I believe, right? There we go.
Okay. All right. Good evening again, Kerry McCormick. I'm Director of Development with Crosspoint Associates. We're the proponent or the applicant for 768 Elm Street. This is our second meeting before you. It was August 30th. And then we were continued. We wanted to get started before the planning board, and it was understood that we were going to have a peer reviewer kind of review our drawing set. So I'll just kind of walk through where we've been since the last time we met with you all on the 30th of August. So we had our first meeting with the planning board on the 12th of September. It was continued to the 10th of October. We had a third meeting on the 11th of or the 14th of November, and then we are prepared to go back before the planning board on the 12th of December, so next week. And during that time, we've had 2 rounds of peer review comments. We responded to the first one back on the 27th of October, and we just received the kind of cleanup comment letter the beginning of the week, and we're ready to respond back to the planning board and GPI, who's the reviewer. Tomorrow morning, we'll issue those comments. So we want to take this opportunity to just kind of go back through the comments that we had received the first meeting, and then there were a few comments or questions that we received yesterday. So we can go through those. So you see it doesn't show the green. So you see the screen that has the letter.
Yes.
November 21st. Yep.
Okay, good. Okay. I don't know why it didn't. So the first question was about the snow storage and being within the 50-foot limit area. So we had pulled all the snow storage outside the 50-foot. So this is the 50-foot line here. We pulled the snow storage out of that area and anywhere along that 50-foot. There was this follow-up question that we received about this snow storage that's identified as here in the parking area, as it was supposed to be removed from in front of the bioswales. So that area is called out as temporary snow storage. And you do see the plan now, right? I just wanted to confirm that.
The commission see that okay?
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So the snow storage is here, and that's going to be called out as temporary snow storage for large storms. What we'll do is pile that there, and then within 24 hours it will be hauled out. So that was the request. I believe that was from the town So we'll add that note as part of a condition, so that clarifies that question about this additional question about the snow. Go back to the letter. And then the next question was plans to manage invasive species. So we submitted this letter that talked about our proposed plan for managing invasive species. So I can just read it quickly. The proposed invasive species plan consists of 3 components. One will be using a cut and blot method for the woody invasive species within the upland restoration area, and I'll show where that is. 2, use a cut and stem injection with limited foliar application to treat the patch of Japanese knotweed. And then 3 would use twice annual cutting / mowing for the upland restoration area. So the question that we did as a follow-up, or received as a follow-up, was answered on this plan here. So this is the landscape plan that we shared last time. So the upland restoration area is called out here, and it's really within this entire New England wildlife seed mix area. So it's just outside the tree line. So what we're proposed to do is manage that, treat the invasives, plant with the wildlife seed mix, and then maintain it with twice annual mowing or cutting. So I think it's relatively invasive of treating the invasives. So that's our proposed plan for addressing the invasive species just outside our limits.
And there's no spraying, is that right?
Correct. Just all hand manually applied, either injection or dab, cut and dab.
There
There
I
is spraying?
understand that there's limited spray.
I think in the description letter, I thought
Yeah, I
it
think we said limited foliar, just because we hate to cut out all the options, because knotweed is somewhat problematic to get. It's probably going to take 2 episodes in the first year and 1 episode in the second year to really get a handle. Then the mowing, I'm hoping will keep it, but it may have to be an iterative process just to keep a lid on the propagules that'll keep coming back, particularly with the knotweed.
Sorry, that's what that means. The foliar application is spray. Is that what that means?
Yeah. I mean, it could be roller, but it would typically would be spray. Yeah.
And I think importantly, the last paragraph there is also very helpful to that effort.
Correct. Yes, I'll read that. So the invasive species removal effort will be conducted under the direct supervision of a qualified wetland scientist with a herbicide application to be conducted only by a Massachusetts licensed pesticide herbicide applicator. Okay, this that satisfies that item.
Can I just ask you, so the Japanese knotweed, is that kind of confined to one corner or area, or is it all 3?
That identified on the plan too, right? I think
Right, that was requested.
that was requested, right? Those 3 areas.
Okay. Okay.
And it is shown on the plan? Just a question.
So the landscape plan shows kind of the area that will be treated of any of the invasives
Right.
with this. It's got a little plus symbol, and that's the area that will be then reseeded with wildflower seed mix.
Yeah, it drops off to the far east, but other than that, it's pretty pervasive.
Right,
The
so
eastern corner by the hotel, it lightens up, but
shown and clouded on the plan so that everybody, the contractor, the commission, the applicant, everybody is aware of where those invasive species removal areas are and what treatments are proposed in what areas.
Because what I'm thinking is, if there is spraying needed for the Japanese knotweed, if it's all in one area and that's all there is, then that's fine. But
Yes.
if it's all over the place, you're going to kill everything you put in. Correct. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this needs to be clarified.
Yeah, so we need a more specific annotation of where those particular invasives are, and then we'll understand how they'll be treated for your letter.
Okay, so it was more of a overall coverage area. This will be all managed and treated, but we'll identify the exact problem areas. I think that's what you're looking for, and
Maybe we can just specify the only areas where the foliar spraying is allowed.
It would be best to cloud that on the plan.
Yeah.
It is much more clear if it's. on
Because
the
then
plan.
everybody knows what's going
Yeah.
on, staff goes out there and says, okay, yeah, that makes.
It's not. It's not-
Follow the plans.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of diversity out there, or categorical diversity, but we can map that up. Carrie, I believe, I'm just looking for photos if there's,
I think it's really critical, Brian, specifically where the knotweed is, because that's going to be where the different treatment is. And as you know, the commission does not generally approve foliar spray.
yep,
So it needs to be very clear where that foliar spray is going to be occurring.
okay. We, yeah, we can provide, I think we can do a GIS based map, Kerry, for that. Just a field map and overlay that, if that's okay.
If that makes it the most clear to everyone, then we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the pictures now. There's a few other things, some pokeweed and things like that in there, but there's no shortage of the knotweed.
Hmm. Okay. All right, so we'll resubmit specific plan showing the trouble areas or the problem areas of those invasive, particularly for knotweed.
Yeah.
Okay. Another comment was regarding the parking and trying to limit any additional impervious area. I think we had noted the amount of impervious that we were removing out of the from the existing project, or the project as it exists today, the property as it exists today. So one area that we had some uncertainty, and I'll show the plan, was around the uses of the building. So the building hasn't changed. It was going to always be this 15,000 square foot building, and we had a coffee shop identified for the first tenant on the far left. Then we had more of a sit down or more fast casual for the second tenant as a restaurant. The third tenant is 5,000 square feet, and that was kind of a little bit up in the air of what that tenant was going to be. We thought we had some serious interest from a couple different options for urgent care, and we even confirmed whether urgent care would be allowed, because it was a little bit of a question as to that use, and we got that confirmed. And as the project progressed, what presented itself was actually a third restaurant to take this space. So when you look at the parking requirement for the restaurant, third restaurant, and the 5,000 square foot restaurant with the required seats, it's 130 seats. It pushes the parking requirement up to 141 spaces. But what we did and worked with the planning department was to take the credit for the joint parking facilities. And what we're able to do is just eliminate all the parking for our fourth tenant, which is the bank. So we're only parking for the restaurant uses, and that requirement is 118 parking spaces. What we have on our plan today is 115 parking spaces. So what Brandon has done is actually also taken into account reserved parking area. So the reserved parking area will be at this back perimeter. And what we'll do is, if it's determined that we need the 3 additional parking spaces to get us from 115 up to 118 parking spaces, we will restripe this back area to gain 1 additional space here and 2 additional spaces here by converting these from the standard parking spaces to what they call, I believe, small car spaces, or otherwise known as compact spaces. And what we'll do is just, it reduces the width of the parking space from 9 feet down to 8 feet. And that gets us 1 additional space here and 1 additional space, or 2 additional spaces across the back, which is here. So we have actually taken, the approach to reduce the parking substantially to what is needed. And we're hopeful that that's going to allow us the parking that's going to be needed for the restaurant. So part of that benefit is the joint uses between the bank, the coffee shop, early morning use, and will benefit from the kind of the variety of uses at the proposed site.
And just to confirm the restriping, there'll be no additional pavement put down, but it's just a restriping exercise.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. And then there were a couple additional questions that required waivers. So we provided a waiver for the no disturb and no build zone area, that a limited amount of work there. And the rain garden and bioswale extending out a little bit outside the existing asphalt pavement area. And I think both of those were, per request to kind of improve the stormwater management that we're adding to the site that doesn't have any of that today. So we wanted to just provide as much of a benefit to the stormwater treatment as possible. So I don't know if there were any questions about those waivers, and maybe if there are, Brian can get into those in a little bit more detail, but we attached those to the letter as well.
Yeah, we think that, the improvements in stormwater are quite magnanimous here, and we hope you agree that these minor waiver requests are fairly trivial and balanced against the net positive control of this site, which is for the last 75 years has been completely uncontrolled with regard to stormwater. Of course, they didn't do that back in the day.
So just one question, I think that's right, and I think everybody
Yeah,
else.
I-
Right.
yeah.
Okay, so just
So-
one question in terms of the septic. You have not yet submitted a Form C to the Health Division. It's not anything within the purview of the NRC, but you should do that sooner rather than later so that anything that they identify as an issue can be dealt with, because that will be required prior to the issuance of the building permit.
Prior to the issuance of which permit, Delia?
Building.
Building, okay.
Okay, just a heads up, if you will. Okay, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, there's one final comment here about the flex terra and the matting in that location, correct?
Yeah, I believe Brandon has made those adjustments to the current plan set. Is that?
Yes, that's correct. We updated the detail to eliminate the jute netting and show the flex terra. So
So I think
flex
it
terra quote medium.
landscape plan, right? Still
We've
on-
also,
Yeah, I think it was still on the landscape.
yep, we also updated the notes as well. I think note C4. It's at the bottom of the page. We've also replaced.
So, go ahead, say that.
Yeah, so we saw the detail like you just showed, but it was just that notation on that, in those plan notes, and then on the planting plan, it was just called out, so just to get that consistent with the detail.
Is that still outstanding, Brandon, on the landscape plan?
I believe so.
No, is it been equivocated there that, let me see.
It's inconsistent between the plan and the notes. Just clarify it throughout so that there's no jute on either the plans or the notes, please.
I don't.
Yes, the note has been corrected.
On the landscape plan.
I think it's still on the landscape plan shown as jute netting. So that, I think it's just a leader on that
Oh,
landscape.
I see it now. Yeah. Okay. It's
Consistency purposes, that's all.
I didn't realize it was on this plan. Okay. Oops. It's at least I see it here in one location. So restore former asphalt shoot with topsoil and seed mix, use jute mesh until established.
Okay, yeah, there's a.
All right.
Great.
Commissioners, any
That's
further
it.
comments?
I'm okay.
Looks like you've captured all the comments from last time and starting to coordinate with the planning, of course, so that's great. Any public comments regarding this application? On the Zoom side?
Not seeing any comments,
Okay,
questions.
so I would assume you're good to continue to December 27th. Obviously you'll have another planning board under the belt, and hopefully that gets clarified, and hopefully by December 27th, we might be good to go.
Mhm.
That's the goal.
So my plan is to submit the response to the comments to the planning board or planning department tomorrow. I would also provide a copy of everything I submit to the Natural Resource Commission as well.
So we're just going to want to see anything that the NRC is looking for. It may and may not overlap with planning. So just make sure what you submit to us is addressing everything that, you know, that you're hearing tonight. So I think you've got the revised plans with the striping, that's going to be consistent with between NRC and planning board. But, you know, the jute netting, that it's a very minor thing, but we just want that consistency. And this, the clouding on the plan for the invasives treatment. Planning board's probably not asking for that, but we are, so.
No, no.
You have until next Friday.
Yeah, right.
To submit
Week
to
from
us.
Friday,
A week from Friday.
you can knock that out, I think.
Great.
So we'll map up the invasives, we'll give identities and categories to those. I'm looking at a photograph from the parking lot. It won't be a Herculean task to sort out the knapweed from other species, but we'll give you a plan. We'll figure out how to present it, but we'll try to make it so we don't have too many. You don't have to look in too many directions to resolve whether this is compliant or not for the certificate of compliance and so forth.
Okay, good. So we'll expect to see you back on the 27th unless we hear differently.
Very good.
Thank
Do you need, I mean, is that official continuance? We used to have to sign there. Is there, it's a de facto signature?
At the old days.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for your time.
Likewise.
Good evening.
Thank you all.
All right, moving to our next continuance, notice of intent, 154 Southfield Road, DEP file 127-1641. Well, bring the other chair up too, so you can see. All right, I think we generally know the issues on this application. We were out on the house maybe a couple weeks ago, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
And where are we at?
Well, we were just hoping that based on that visit and the note that I sent, that we could come to a compromise that allowed us to remediate on the creek and add the plantings that would be best for that land and the creek. And if we could take the patio out, put grass in, and possibly keep the fireplace. That's what I would really.
Okay. Well, it's obviously a difficult situation, right? Because, just the history of the project, not necessarily the hardscape that we're talking about, but just history going back, I think it was maybe 06 or something, or the first year, 07. Thank you. And obviously, as you framed it, right, it's just an oversight mistake in regard to some of the bill.
Well, that I didn't realize the fireplace would count the same as the building.
Yeah. Understood. But as we talked about previously, it puts the commission in a pretty tough spot in regard to its 50-foot no build policy, where regardless of a mistake happening, it's an issue that I think as we talked about it last time in the two previous meetings where you were before us, it's being an oversight, but it does create a precedent, if you will, in the 50-foot non-disturbed zone. And, even though there's good mitigation being offered, it does create a little bit of a precedent that I'm not sure we could ever step back from. And that's the issue at hand. And so I like, again, I'll speak for myself as a commissioner, that I don't think that, and I think as we noted last time, if this had come before us as a typical application, we probably would have considered a patio, if you will, because we've done that from time to time within the 50, depending on the circumstances. but we've never considered allowing structure within the 50. And that's what we're really faced with in this particular bill. And so, again, not wanting to set that precedent, because I'm not sure the commission would ever be able to defend itself again by allowing this. And every project has its own circumstances, but nonetheless, once you breach this, it becomes a very difficult position for the commission. So,
What were the laws that changed? I'm not sure that I fully understand them in 2009, which would have been after our project.
So in 2009, the town meeting approved the wetlands bylaw, and that established a 25-foot no disturb zone and certified vernal pool protection and enforcement capacity for the Natural Resources Commission. That had been in place along with the 50-foot no build policy since, I believe it was 1994. And the commission talked about putting that into the bylaw in 2009 and chose not to at that time. So what is in the bylaw is that 25-foot no disturb zone, and the 50-foot is a policy, but that was something that had been talked about when you had been in front of the commission in 2007. There was conversation about, where where the work was being done for the prior project in 2007. It was 43 feet from wetlands, and the commission in 2007 had said it doesn't comply with the 50-foot no build zone policy, but because it's in the location of an existing deck, and it doesn't get closer to wetlands, that it was okay. And so that was how things progressed at that time.
right.
Grandfather at that time.
Right, exactly.
So what changed in 2009 would have no impact on what we did
No,
either way.
it wouldn't have mattered either way, right? Because it really, the only thing that would have been relevant for your property there would have been the 25-foot no disturb zone, and you were not within that.
Okay. So, I guess just my opinion is I don't think we can allow the build hardscape to stay. Certainly, I think we're open to the patio, if you will, or but obviously, Bill, Sarah.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it would be a precedent setting. Yes, the patio, I can see that. I can see having that there. For the fireplace, really, I mean, yeah, that's really problematic.
So we had talked at that site visit about maybe, so the fire pit is here, and then there's a retaining wall here, and those are both within the 50-foot no build zone, which is this heavy dock line here. So we had talked about, would there be a way to move that so that it was, this portion of the house is already within the 50. Is there a way to really, I think it's really this fireplace that it's a big structure that is, I think that's what's giving the commission the biggest heartache around this. If there's a way that can be relocated to be, kind of in this location, and I understand it's a lot of work to do that, but the patio, that is permitted on a case-by-case basis. And I think that's really not the issue. It's that fireplace and being able to get that outside of the 50, and then the retaining wall, allowing this area where you have that wall to just kind of go back to what it was previously, where it was more like a 2 or 3 to 1 slope graded in from the adjacent parcel. I think that, if that's something that you can, I mean, I think you did the work yourself, so which is great that you have that capacity to be able to do that. If that's something that you guys can think about and put on a plan and have that be something that you propose, I think that
I agree.
Yeah.
would
Yes,
be-
sure, of course.
Yeah, I agree. I hope you understand the precedence piece, because otherwise every single person who didn't understand the law or, do something either knowingly or not knowingly would be able to bring up this situation. If we pass this, we'll be able to bring this up, and we just wouldn't have anything to stand on going forward.
If there's no other land in the backyard.
I know, it's tight.
Yeah.
I know.
What is the problem with the side of moving it towards that one side?
What would block, can you block the,
What do you mean?
Pathway?
like turn it sideways? Into that, that's
Yeah.
a, yeah. That's
Go this way.
I'll put it in the corner.
I
On the
did
left.
talk with the building department and they don't
Right.
have any, there's no issues with, outdoor flu
Mhm,
or setbacks or anything like that. So,
mhm.
I think, we want to see it on a plan and, we can run it by the building department, just make sure that everything's,
Mhm.
good for
Okay.
everybody moving forward, but,
Mhm.
um,
I mean, could you move, I mean, I don't say what to do, but could you move those stairs going down from that, up at that side yard towards the house?
yeah.
Yeah, move those
Mhm.
towards the house, right? And then the fireplace could be put partly where the stairs are, in that kind of a corner, right in there.
Mhm.
Is that
Yeah,
possible?
Need to bring in so much material
Do you?
to correct the grades. When you pull that fireplace and all those walls out, you're bringing in at least
Yeah,
50
that's-
yards of material.
Cause that's a,
Or trucking in the backyard.
So is it something that you can look at and,
Yeah.
come to the next meeting or, take a look and see what options that you have? I mean, I think, you I think what the commission's looking for.
Mhm.
And you have the ability because, when you do this work, so that's great. To be able to think about how this can, realistically. Change
Yeah.
so that it's something that works for you and works for.
okay. Okay,
Very
Thank
sorry.
you.
okay, all right,
Appreciate it.
thank you.
It's,
Public comment?
Yep.
Yep. Any public comment in regard to that issue at 154 Southfield Road? Just in case.
Nothing online?
and,
Okay.
Okay.
All set. Thank you. All right, so moving on to new applications this evening. Looking for an RDA 183 Ministerial Drive, RDA file 23-13.
I'm property owner.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Have your name and address just for the record.
Sure, Liana Emily, 183 Ministerial Drive. Brian is our representative with the debt company.
Ah,
Did the
okay.
schematics. Glenn, Brian, yeah.
And they're on.
They said they didn't need to attend.
Oh, that's
They
fine.
submitted all the
Okay, all
paperwork,
right,
so they
okay.
said, "Okay, we did."
All right, okay, that's fine.
Okay, sure. You want to just give us an overview?
Yeah, it's a property we bought just 2 years ago. It had a deck, with it, just like a small picture, but
I'll put it.
you have it,
hold
yeah.
up so everybody can see it that way.
So that's what I can do. And like the house was sold as the deck was included. We assumed everything was fine, so we bought it. Just a few months ago, we were walking on it and the ground fell through. We pulled up some boards, the joists were rotted. We asked the decking company to come get us an estimate, and in that process, they determined that there was not a previous approval for a deck on that property from the previous owner who constructed the deck. So we just want to replace the existing footprint so it's safe to use. We have their plan. This is like the current footprint and the new one is exactly the same. We're just changing the stairs. It won't expand into any farther into the wetland, into the buffer zone or anything like that. So we just want to replace the existing deck.
Right. Total replacement in cost,
Yes,
in essence.
and no other changes, to the property.
Okay.
Seems pretty
Bill,
straightforward to
Sarah?
me. I don't have any comments.
It's, yeah, same. Doing a little slow.
I know, it's like, I think we did, Brian said he submitted, I was gonna say a
Yeah,
picture.
just
So
wanted the public to see it as well. in case we don't
Yeah.
comment on it.
So it's in the backyard. The steps, more just a cost-effective technique. We're just gonna not have those big steps and just do like a 2-foot
Mhm.
regular staircase.
I was wondering about that. I was wondering, boy, those stairs.
Those
there's
are-
a lot of stairs.
It's a lot, yeah. So it'll just become a little seating area, but
Yeah.
that's it. And then the land is like out to us, but against we won't be expanding it at all.
Yeah.
Within the same footprint.
Yep, that's fine. Okay. we're good.
Yeah.
Any public comment regarding this application? Online, saying none. All right, I think we do have a determination this evening.
Want me to take it, or you have it, Sarah?
I have it. You have it?
I know I have that one, but
No, it's this is.
oh, yes, I got it.
Just
Sure,
read it,
no,
just
no
read it.
problem. Sure,
Yeah.
happy to. So I move that we issue a negative determination, number 3, with the following conditions. That all work shall be completed within the existing footprint of the deck and no closer to the wetlands and existing conditions. And 2, after the project is completed, the applicant shall submit a letter to the NRC stating that all work has been conducted in accordance with all conditions of this determination of applicability, and any change from the RDA shall be described. And this is for 183 Ministerial Drive, RDA applicant number 23-13.
Second.
Did the vote, Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well.
That's it.
Great.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you. A couple made me really nervous, but thank you so much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
well,
it.
thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
this evening. All right. Next, the new application this evening is for 94 Tenny Lane, an NRAD DEP file 137-1656. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Joshua Bath, and this is my client, Gary Monsaruta, and his wife, Ann Jones. And we are here for the abbreviated notice of resource area delineation. So,
Yeah.
So
I do, and I'm just having difficulty showing it. I have too many of them to see.
Okay, we'll fill it up though.
And we'll,
Okay.
I'll get there.
Just give us a
no problem.
couple seconds. There we go.
So as you can see from the plan, the 50-foot setback is going through the existing deck stairway. The wetlands have encroached on the property over the past 15 years. And now, before, when the deck was originally built, it was not in the 50-foot zone. It is currently after our delineation. And the deck is it needs to come down because it is rotten. So we would like to rebuild in its footprint, not any farther into the 50-foot buffer zone. But we would like to build over the 50-foot zone up until the deck where it currently stands.
So I'm gonna just actually, this is an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation where
Okay.
you're looking for the wetlands
Yeah.
approval.
Yeah.
So,
And you're previewing
yeah,
some thoughts going
Just-
forward,
right,
right?
which is
That's right.
okay, which is okay, but
Which is
but
okay.
the purpose of the
Yeah.
meeting tonight is just to
Just to
confirm
confirm
the
delineation.
wetlands boundary, which staff has reviewed, we're comfortable with.
Okay.
Yes, so that's the,
And we appreciate
Purpose
the
of-
heads up. By the
Yep.
way.
yes.
We can talk about that later.
The script.
Right.
So depending on what happens tonight in terms of whether you agree with the delineation, what are the steps that we take going forward? Is it an RDA or?
It's a notice of intent, because it's in the 50.
Good, okay. Based on IC, I seemed like the delineation was good. And that's pretty straightforward.
Agree.
Sarah,
Mhm.
Bill,
Yep.
anything on?
Nope.
All right. Any public comment in regard to delineation, if you will? Going out in Zoom.
Nobody in Zoom lands, but I.
Okay, I think we have,
May I just
In
ask
order-
a question,
yes.
just out of interest? Is this moving of the wetlands encroachment, is that being seen all over town? Is that common or?
I wouldn't necessarily agree that the wetlands have encroached.
Oh, okay.
I think that the
this is-
wetlands do what
This
they
is
do.
the
So,
delineation. Okay.
I mean, that's very broadly speaking, wetlands are reverting back to what they were prior
Okay.
to being ditched, dredged, drained,
Yes.
and filled for agricultural purposes. So we are seeing changes. But whether they are expanding, I think that's a question of
okay,
when you
that's-
look, what
yeah,
you're
got
looking
it.
at as your time
Got
frame.
it. Nice. Okay, thank you.
all right. So with that, I think we do have an order this evening.
Sure, I move that we close the hearing and issue an order of resource area delineation for 94 Kenny Lane, DEP file 1371656.
Second,
All right, and the vote, Bill? Aye. Sarah?
I,
And I am an aye as well.
Okay, well, thank you ever so much for your time and consideration.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
we look forward to seeing you with the.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, moving on to an extension request.
Hello. My name is Keely McCall-Tennell with DeRosa Environmental Consulting. I'm here representing Joseph and Elizabeth McNeely of 65 Madison Drive, and Evan Gavendran of DeRosa Environmental Consulting is also on the call tonight. Joseph and Elizabeth are requesting a 3-year extension for the valid order of conditions for 65 Madison in order to continue the treatment of the pond. This project has included the implementation of a pond management program that was designed to reduce eutrophication and improve the overall health of the pond. In accordance with the approved plan, 3 submersed aerators were installed in the pond to improve dissolved oxygen concentrations, enhance water quality, and decrease algae blooms. Biochar filters were also placed near the diffuser heads to prevent the buildup of excess nutrients that contribute to eutrophication. Additionally, herbicides and algicide treatments were applied to the pond as needed in accordance with the approved plan. Great progress has been made on the pond over the course of this project, and the applicants would like to have the option to continue pond treatments as needed over the next 3 years. Water and Wetlands, who have been administering the pond treatments, have also been submitting annual reports, and they would continue to do so if the pond was treated. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Delia, you, and looking at the reports, you're comfortable with the reports that have been submitted?
Yes,
and everything's in
Reports
order?
are, the reports are great. The site looks very good.
Great.
I think it's in really good shape. I think these guys have done a nice job with the invasives, and feeder markers are in place. And I think that, you know, the extension is a legitimate ask to keep doing the work that they're doing.
Okay. Sarah, Bill?
I'm fine. Sounds good.
All right. Public comment?
Mhm.
Any public comment in regard to this requested extension at 65 Madison Drive? Okay, seeing none, if we could get a quick motion on this?
I move that we extend the applicant 65 Madison Drive, DEP file 1371491 for, did we say 3 years, was it? For 3 years.
Second,
All right, and the vote, Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
I,
And I am an aye as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great project. All right, so now we have a number of COCs this evening. What I,
got a closing interview.
thank you.
So I don't see anybody on, maybe needs to be here for either the COCs or the closing issues. So I know that there are people here for the.
Yeah.
So I'll jump ahead to that.
Sure.
Okay.
So we're gonna take things out of order, given the folks that are here, probably more interested in Warner's Pond, I would think. So let's move ahead with that one. Just to kick it off a little bit, you know, first and foremost, I think the NRC and staff really do appreciate all the commentary that we've received today. You know, the more commentary, the better. In the end, it'll make the task force, you know, ultimately a body that we can all appreciate and have trust in. And I also want to just bring up that, you know, the town has engaged a discussion with CBI, the Consensus Building Institute, to serve as a facilitator for the task force. We did send them the NRC's charge. We also sent them the Warner Pond draft charge as well, so they could see both sides of that, you know, discussion, if you will. Upon their review, they had some thoughts about perhaps how the task force makeup may want to change a little bit. They're gonna they were gonna take it under consideration. They were gonna get back to us this week in regards to some of those thoughts. And I just wanted to let people know that, because obviously it's, as I just stated, it's very important that, you know, the task force is really a foundational step as we move forward. We want to make sure that everybody has confidence in the membership of that task force. So changes may be coming once we hear back from them as well. They've been there before, they've done it often. And so it's really good feedback for the collective us to hear from them in regard to the continuing formation of the task force. So stay tuned in regard to that. And then, so with that, I've got a couple suggested minor edits to the task force as well, but I'll hold those comments until after we hear from the folks that are here. So without further ado, public comments in regard to, I think primarily the Warner's Pond Task Force, but if there are other comments, we're happy to take those, of course. So any public comments in regard to Warner's Pond?
Could you give us the current status of what the makeup?
The current status of the makeup right
Sorry,
now is,
just name and address for the record.
oh yes, thank you.
Jimmy, thank you.
Jimmy, 2003, Commonwealth Ave,
Thank you. The makeup is at the moment, as stated in the draft charge that's posted to the NRC website.
Could you say what that is?
Yeah, let me pull that up.
Yeah, that'd be helpful.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Hey, technology.
Sorry.
Get the better of us. There you go. So that's in the draft at this point.
Can you see that?
Okay.
Right, this is a draft. So
Correct.
we did get some comments from Allison Ailey. She had concerns about having, so on this, voting members are the 1 through 11. And there's a potential that somebody from the Hassan-Omisto Band of Nipmuc would not be a resident.
Yeah.
And there was concern about having non-resident members be voting. And it is not typical, but it does happen. It is, you know, if you look at APP 10, which is the board and committee appointments, it does allow for it. We could see it, you know, it has occurred on other boards and committees.
Yeah, I think we saw it in the select board discussion of a couple nights ago that, yeah, I think the select board noted that from time to time that does happen, right? And it is allowable under under that regulation.
But that doesn't mean it should. Doesn't mean it should happen.
So just again, name and address for the record, and you really should just wait to be addressed by the chair.
So if you don't mind, do you have any further comments?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm an indigenous person. I'm Wampanoag, and the Wampanoag and Nipmuc, we coexist together. And I had concerns of why you have Nipmuc. It seems like, you know, are you trying to have a shill, or what's going on, or who is this person? The optics were terrible. And what I took it to the DEI commission because I'm a member, but I recused myself from any decision that was made. One of the things that was said is that perhaps maybe the Natural Resources Commission needs to do some DEI work, because there's a lot of pushback, a lot of comments about the optics of how that looked. It felt like a plant. I got real suspicious about it. I'm in a butter. I'm an indigenous person that's been here for 40 years, and I have a knowledge of West Concord. I was on the West Concord task force. So I'm wondering where this person would come from.
So I think I can see.
But I just want to understand your concern. Are you saying that you think implying that the NRC is perhaps planting?
I said that if the optics don't look good.
Okay.
They don't look good because, you know, if you want an indigenous person, where is that person going to come from? Why? You know, a lot of these things that happen, you know, that point different people, like, well, why is there a Native American person? What's the difference? What is the point? What are you trying to come across with? And that's where the optics get really strange, and that's why there have been comments of maybe there needs to be some DEI work within natural resources so that you can understand when you enact these kind of things, the effects that it has out to my people.
Okay.
And uh, please accept my apologies if I have caused any offense, because that is certainly not the intention. And I can tell you, so I was the one who recommended that it is somebody from the Nipmuc band to be represented. And as I understand it, and I'm not an expert in this field at all, but as I understand it, the range of the Nipmuc is from the Concord River to the Chicopee River. And so that is why that person has been represented. And I have spoken with people or somebody within the Nipmuc tribe about this. And again, as I understand it, the Wampanoag is in southern, it is not this region, it's southern New England. So Mashpee, Gayhead, or Aquina.
Well, we work together.
Yeah,
Correct.
understood. But that's the reason that the Nipmuc nation member is represented on the task force, and that may not be the right person. And
The reason why is like, because I'm local, I'm supposed to.
understood. But Jimmy, there's also a Friends of Warner's Pond representative. There's also an abutter.
I'm just speaking of the fact that it was named by Nipmuc with the opportunity better if you ask for some indigenous person and was a little bit more open.
Yeah.
But by
Okay,
targeting
that's
it
fair.
that way, it has an effect with our relationships with our tribe.
Okay, well, that's helpful information,
Yeah.
and this is a draft.
Yeah.
So these comments are useful.
Appreciate the comment. Thank you.
Yep.
Yep, we all learn as we go.
Mhm.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
name and address for the record.
Mark Boasberg, 48 Lawsbrook Road. I'm also on the butter. I would just suggest that all of the voting members of the task force be residents of the town of Concord.
Okay, thank you.
One, all to be. The ex officio, advisory members, fine.
Yep.
But the voters, they should all be us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
I guess I'm Miguel Chavari, I'm 255 New York Ave. I'm looking at the essay about the residency and then the selecting people on the task force to say in most instances, committee members should be residents. Okay, I think discussed that. There may be occasional exceptions when an individual's unique skill or experience supports the appointment of a non-resident. So does that qualify the unique skill or experience?
I'm sorry, can you read
Where-
that
where's
again?
that- where's that
I don't see that in our,
Give me 1 second,
Yep.
just like you're dealing with.
yeah. I hear you.
Is it at,
APP 10.
yeah, so when you look under the residency, it's like the first or second sentence underneath there, I gotta find it again. And that's, it's referring, what did I say, unique skills?
And experience.
And experience, but that wouldn't necessarily, that's talking about people's skills, that's like bringing in an engineer or something like that, and not someone's heritage, not someone's background.
Yeah, no, I think your point's well taken as the previous comment as well. So
So that would support not having.
I think as we noted at the front end of the meeting, certainly the makeup it's in a draft form.
No, I understand.
That's why we're taking the comments,
Right,
right?
So
So we appreciate that comment and we'll certainly, take that in. And again, it may not be the makeup at the end of the day,
understand.
both in regard to some further commentary from the public as well as some consultation with CBI.
So my comment is that, yeah, so I think that it would be inappropriate based on that they don't have, it's not based on skills.
Got it.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Appreciate that. Yes, please.
Tracy Dunn, I live at 26 Lawsbrook Road. So I guess I'm just looking for clarity. Are we assuming that everyone on 1 to 11, the Nipmuc side would be a resident, like a resident member, an upstream abutter, downstream abutter, or member?
I think the only one that is not a potential Concord resident would be the Nipmuc member.
I think that's right.
What about the ORS representative?
So we have received a green card already from Jeff Collins, who is a Concord resident and on the ORS, I believe he's on the ORS board.
I have to say, right, I assume that not every member who's in the Friends of One responded to it, right? So assuming you'll appoint somebody who's.
No, I think everyone here is a resident.
Everyone's a resident, Friends of One.
Yeah. But we're growing.
No, I know, yeah, that's good, okay.
All right.
Just as a follow-up,
Sure.
just because I think as I just sat through tonight's meeting, which I've never paid so much attention to NOC's work, which is huge. But it looked like, so there was the Assabet Bluff, which has development coming. There was 166 Commonwealth Ave, there's 768 Elm Street, and then Millville. So all of that is big change, big development right along our rivers. So making sure that our residents are heard as we're trying to protect our open space.
Yep.
That's what we try to do.
Yeah,
That's it.
that's-
That's
yeah.
it.
No, we appreciate that.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you. Delia, anybody on your end?
Let's see. No, I don't see anyone's hand up on Zoom. So
Okay.
I guess I would, if we have a little bit of time, you
I've
go.
got a couple
Yep.
suggestions too, to entertain. If you could bring up the chart a little bit, right? And some of these just words, if you
Yep.
will, and a couple of thoughts. Anyway, so going to the front end, the background. I think it's the third paragraph, if you will, yep, where it says, second sentence, end of the second sentence, where it says, to addressing the nutrient and sediment buildup and dam removal. My guess is dam removal probably shouldn't be there because this is new, right? With the past efforts have range from aquatic, which is
We haven't
great,
got there yet.
dredging, but we haven't got there yet. This is all new to everybody, of
Yes.
course, so I think that could just be, and should strike that.
Mhm.
And
Oops, I'm sorry.
thank you. And then I go down to the purpose section, just down below. I don't know, this is just wording, but at the very beginning, I said, since dam removal, but this dam removal, take it or leave it if you will. But then I also strike most of the second sentence. You know, it just has been identified by some in the community as cause for concern. We understand that that's the very purpose of the task force. I don't think we need commentary in the charge, if you will. We understand the very purpose of why we're doing this.
I'd be a little careful about that. I honestly, I think it's just to say this,
Yeah, please.
it brings in the community in a way that they're feeling sensitive. And by saying so, it doesn't do us any harm to say it in this sentence. I would leave that in.
Okay, all
Personally.
right, Bill. Is there any comment on that?
I'm
Or
actually,
anybody.
yeah, I'm fine with leaving it in. I'm just wondering about the beginning of that sentence. The dam, I would word it something like the dam removal recommendation would be a change in strategy, because otherwise it implies that we've actually made a change in strategy. You see what I mean? We've made
Yes,
we've
that's a
made
good point.
recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Recommendation or investigation or something,
Mhm.
but certainly not, nobody's there yet, so,
No.
okay. That's a good point, thank you. And then further down in that same paragraph, third sentence from the bottom where it says, again, these are just words, there's nothing.
Sorry, 1 second.
Yep,
Removal.
Yep.
Yeah.
and then the task force will recommend a course of action to the pond that aligns with, just aligns with or reflects, something maybe a little bit more broader than just pure alignment with that. But again, that's just a
Right.
word that maybe reads better. I don't think it changes the overall purpose. And then lastly, on the second page, item number 7. it's odd to come up with a recommending a course of action to, well, it says to address community identified criteria. I mean,
I know.
that's the lens we want to look at, among other things in the task force, whatever they determine. But I think what we're really looking for a recommendation to improve the ecological health and recreational capacity of the Warner's Pond.
I also thought it was hard. I didn't, that sentence. I wonder whether something like, to submit, this is number 7, right? To submit
Yes.
a final report to the Natural Resource Commission recommending a course of action for the pond, using community identified criteria found in this. It's
So
more,
and I actually had the same thought as you, and I think in the original charge.
Yeah.
It did say to improve the recreational health and ecological capacity, because that's the problem that we've been trying to address for so long.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we do want to look at it through the lens
Okay,
of,
Cool.
the,
Okay.
sure.
you know, the Envision
Yeah.
Concord, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another recommendation.
Yeah.
To submit a final report to the NRC recommending a course of action which aligns with Envision Concord. Envision Concord. Or which aligns with
Yeah, but-
the criteria.
But we've said that here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, and that's a very,
Okay.
that's an important thing, right?
It
'Cause
is.
It's broad scope, and again,
Oh, we should change
the
that.
task force will
Flex.
further determine how it wants to investigate and look at it
Yeah, that
from a
makes
whole
sense.
bunch
Yeah.
of views, but I think the recommendation wants to be primarily about, again, whatever the task force recommendation is.
Yes,
And it wants to address
It's
those
addressing it.
primary issues.
taking into
Right.
account. Okay,
Those are the issues that we're trying to.
Very purpose of
6.
why we're here,
Right.
right? Ecological health, recreational
Okay.
opportunities.
So can we look back at that and bit at the end?
Yes.
Again? So somehow.
So do you just, do you want to type that in to see, so
Yeah.
people can see it and comment on it?
To improve.
To improve ecological health and recreational capacity at the Warner's Pond by December 1. Okay, so that's, that's what we're looking
And
for,
that-
whatever that
of
makes,
Warner's Pond.
correct, of Warner's Pond, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right,
For the Warner's Pond system, if it does end up being a dam removal, it wouldn't be Warner's Pond.
yeah, Warner's
the
Pond
system.
system, that's fine, yep. Yeah, just trying to
I'm just trying
trying
to
to
be
thread the needle
broad.
and just making
Yep.
sure we're capturing the ultimate goal here is. You don't know what course that will be, but that's the end goal. And with that, I don't have any other comments. Anyway, thank you for indulging me on that.
So you said you've already submitted first draft. Well, that was mainly about the representation, who's going to be on the task force. Like
We-
they're
we-
looking
And
at.
I want to stick with that for a minute. While we have a lot of people here, I would like to hear, our purpose is to make sure that this charge is representative
Right.
and does, we heard comments about, who should be, who shouldn't be, who should be voting, who shouldn't be voting. And I think those are great comments and they're helpful. I think it would be, to me, it would be helpful while we have people here and on Zoom, if we can hear more about, so say the Nipmuc or whatever tribal member it is comes off and now is ex officio and advisory. Now you have 10 people.
Yep.
And you want an odd number.
Yep.
Typically on boards and committees, that's
Mhm.
just standard.
Yep.
So who else should be in that role?
Well,
And I would be,
Well, what, one thing I did hear from, I don't know if it was Warner's Pond.
so.
Excuse me,
one
guys,
second.
if you don't mind.
Address that.
One thing we did, I think it was in the Warner's Pond draft, I'm not sure, but I know the Concord Land Trust was noted as a potential member. Again, Warner's Pond is conservation land underwater primarily, but nonetheless, that could be a potential option.
Were there
Yes.
reasons for Nipmuc that Wampanoag doesn't serve?
What's that?
Are there reasons why Wampanoag doesn't serve the Nipmuc?
I would say because Wampanoag is not in this region, so
Other
this,
than living here.
right, but there are other people that, I mean, as an abutter, you know, you have other opportunities to
I believe
serve.
that it's better not to have any name walking out for. That's what I'm saying, the optics.
That's
Okay.
why we took away from your comment, if you will.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I'll put my green card in, I can.
Yep.
I can work with people, I do trying task force and said.
Great.
Yeah.
Do you know representatives of this, of that band of Nipmuc? You know any of this one?
Not directly, I'm more of a, down Cape, and actually it's
Sure.
really interesting because there's a parallel, thing going on down Cape.
Oh.
With the dam and the pond right now.
Oh,
Really?
okay.
are they doing this with the task force?
I haven't gotten that detailed. A friend of mine is an environmental engineer who works in Boston Harbor mitigating the flooding. And he was the one that just sent me the link to
Interesting.
what's going on there, because I told him over the weekend, this is what's going on here.
Yeah.
He used to live in my house, and he knows. what's
Oh,
going on.
interesting.
And
Yeah.
so he said, your story has been happening. You know,
So the person, just so you know, the person that I have had a conversation with is Bruce Curlis
Mhm.
of the Hassanamasco Band of Nipmuc. So, but I, you know,
I can send you a link to that, because I think it's
Sure.
very valuable. There's a lot of parallel.
That's great.
yeah,
No, we'd love to see it. Thank you. Yes,
Hi, Jill, 442 Osborne Road. I just want to say that I really appreciate that I'm hearing a sense of going into this task force with the intention to truly explore the issue. And I want to explain something that I'm sure you're aware of, which is the sensitivities that you've sensed in the community have come purely from the sense that, you know, there was a comment when looking at the document that the strategy hasn't changed, that there wasn't a strategy set for dam removal, unless I'm misunderstanding what was said. Based on the 3 meetings that we attended, it was very clear in those 3 meetings that there was an intention, and that those meetings clearly served the perspective of dam removal. The fact that all the pro dam removal points were in green, and all the all the pond supporting the pond concerns were in red. It didn't take a lot to see what was happening, and that was really disturbing. And honestly, I think if we all felt that this was a true exploration, like I want to do the right thing, ecologically, economically, historically, I am genuinely interested in coming to the right decision. But I have to tell you personally, my hackles went straight up in going to those meetings that felt like, honestly, in a former for down the river.
Yeah.
Just wanted to see.
no, thank you for the comment. It certainly wasn't the intention. And the blue and green was not intended as well, but again,
It was,
you know,
everything that was said.
oversight, and we learn as we go. So thank you for your comment. Yes.
Commonwealth. So this is mostly dam versus dredging, right?
It's not versus anything.
I understand, but it's the two main.
There's 3, I think there's 3 avenues.
What's the third one?
No action.
No action.
well,
Oh,
but
well,
also,
anything else that comes up.
you know, so we have, you know, right now in July, you know, we have a consultant on board to look at the 30% design for dam removal. And that's to understand, you know, that was when the, you know, goal was to go to 2024 town meeting. But that's also to understand and be able to explain and describe what would dam removal look like, because there's so many questions around that. Like, I think we can all picture what it would look like if you were to dredge, you know, you're gonna have deeper parts of the pond. So that's underway right now. And as part of their scope, they are looking at up to 5 additional alternatives. So, John Coleman's side channel prospects, that is being evaluated by this consultant.
So something like, and as you know, I was asking about the drawdowns.
Yeah.
And that could be one that they look at.
That's what I was.
Absolutely.
That
Yep.
will be included?
So the task
It could
force,
be.
the task force can look
Yeah.
at dam removal, dredging, no
Okay.
action,
That answers
and
my
other things.
management of the pond. So
You
that was
bet.
my question.
You
Yeah.
bet. They've got really kind of free reign to
Mhm.
further,
Come up with
define and
those 5
refine
alternatives, right?
where they're
Okay.
going.
Good. I did have one question I want to refer back to. I think it would have maybe affect dredging, but I'm not sure I understood correctly. When you were talking about the modal path, not saying it wrong. And you were talking about taking these, restrictions off of a small portion of that. And then it looked like you were pointing to the land that was off Winthrop Street.
Right,
Um,
Junction.
is that actually the old Junction Village site or what's adjacent to it?
It is the Junction Village site.
So then that would mean that it wouldn't be, like, for instance, if you do go with the dredging plan, as we know, the prison site was inadequate. So if you do go with the dredging plan with a solution that includes the transportation of the sediment off-site, the Winthrop Junction Village site.
Yep.
Would be, a sediment would be a potential candidate for sediment disposal. But if you put a conservation restriction on it, it will.
So CHDC, the Concord Housing Development Corporation, owns that Junction Village property. And they have, you probably recall that there was an 83 unit assisted living facility that was proposed there. And they had intended to put all of the land outside of that building footprint into a conservation restriction, right?
So my question is just, if you do have a dredging that requires transportation.
Yeah.
And that could be like a lay plan, that could be a potential, is that, would.
It's a lot of
I guess I'm-
material. I mean, that we could talk to them and ask them if they would take 35,000 yards. It's a lot of material. I mean, that's,
Yeah,
It's-
Mike
No,
is,
but-
it's
but
not
I guess
suitable,
the first thing is just that, I was just asking whether or not you might be doing something that might restrict that, should it be
I don't-
an option by doing a conservation. That's fascinating.
oh, no, well, so I don't want to prejudge anything. I mean, I haven't even talked to CHDC about this.
in my
So
case,
I'm bringing it to the NRC's attention first because it's their restriction
Mhm.
on both the VOA parcel, the Concord Park parcel, and the 300 Baker Ave. So just, the NRC's, I haven't even talked to CHDC. So I don't want to presuppose anything about what would be allowed or not.
Yeah.
Without having even an initial conversation with them.
but you
But
raise a
we
good point.
can, yeah, it is a good
I
point.
think you raise a
That's-
good point in
yeah.
terms of, if dredging, as it's explored further, the task force, again, there's good time there to evaluate other places.
Right.
Right, not just that one. perhaps, Right, so to your point,
And so-
that's a
and-
good point.
Right.
And I don't
No.
know enough about it.
But just eyeballing it here, even if there was a little bit, even if that was to come to pass, it doesn't sound like it's going to be a very significant area. I don't think in terms of offset necessarily. If you're
Right.
5 feet wider and it's,
Right.
it's not going to be a big area, I'll say.
10 years ago, I walked that land with the state. Because when I was on task force, we were looking at that. That was the first time we were looking at about putting housing.
Yeah.
And I asked them, I said, well, the land is contaminated, really badly. So what if we built low income housing or any kind of housing? And people want to have a garden. And the mass official said to me, well, they would have to put it above ground plant. And then that collapsed. And then this last time around, the same thing happened because it's super fun cleanup site. But it would be appropriate to dump. And I would think my friend who's a scientist saying, well, you could dig a trench across Farm Ave, which they did recently put the electronics in for the rail trail crossing. And you could use the dredging machine and pump it across into there. And that would cut out a lot of the transportation charges of the biggest expense.
Yeah.
Dredging.
Yeah,
Right.
again, I don't have a lot of experience with dredging, so, but again, if that's something that the task force really wants to dig into, which it could well do, then they can, they can explore, yeah, they can explore those engineering, mechanics, if you will.
Right.
Thank you for that.
Yep, I mean, that might be where it could, if it were to be dredged, that might be a suitable site.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had looked at other places for putting fill. The prison was willing to take it for free. So obviously that was a no cost option for the town.
Yeah.
Other than the hauling.
Yeah.
Charges for the contractor. It was free.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we had looked at other options before we were there. I mean, one of them was, at the StarMet facility. They had to fill the cooling, the cooling tank, and it was so. They said, right. I said, we have 35,000 yards, and they said, forget it. It's not suitable. It's muck. So they want what they call suitable fill material, which is compactable, and you cannot compact muck. It's just not.
So the rental fee would also be free, or the light plan stuff we done from those properties.
Well, I mean, maybe.
Besides,
although, yeah.
I mean, CHTC is quasi town.
Right, so that's.
Right, light plant is, for sure, but it's a lot, that's a lot of material. I mean, that's like 20 feet high, and I mean, it was a big area that
we were filling a hollow, and then it was stacking up to about 12 or 14 feet high after we filled up
a
lower portion as well.
Right.
But again, I think all things can be explored.
Yeah.
35,000 cubic yards.
Correct.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was the amount coming out of the pond in the original dredge.
Right.
Yes.
Since we're talking about dredging, are there any plans to put it out to bid again?
So again, that's going to be something for the task force to talk about.
Yep.
I will say that, Bert and I have talked about that a lot. Because, we've heard, we've talked, Ed and I, we've talked about it. We understand the concern with one bid and a COVID bid. And, we don't know what would happen if it were put out to bid again. But here's a little bit of the dilemma that, so there is, around $300 million available.
3 million.
I'm sorry, 3 million.
That's a lot.
Right. 3 million. So that number hasn't really changed. I mean, some of that is going to EA for the work that they're doing right now. But it's about 3 million that we have.
Our numbers.
So it's not a lot of work to reissue the bid. It's not. It would have to be for the same thing, because that's what we have the permits for, the multiple permits for. It is to do that 35,000 yards of dredge. We could talk to the prison, and we have started initial conversations. Instead of moving it over the other side of Route 2 and bringing it to the farm, which is what we had intended, because that's where they wanted it, if they were going to accept it. What if we left it in place on their field? And so we're having that conversation that slightly changes the bid, but it doesn't change the permitting. And that permitting is all related to how you take it out of the ponds and dewater and all of that. But then you put it out to bid, and you're asking contractors, provide us with a cost to do this work. And they can come back and they can say, they know we have $3 million available. And so, they could ask, and we could say, we're not disclosing that number, which to me is disingenuous. Or, you could say, well, we've got 3 million. And they say, it's gonna, minimum 5. So who's going to even bid on it? And then, what does the community say? You didn't even get a bid. So we don't have any useful number. As I said, it's not a lot of effort to put it out, but it just doesn't feel
Well, you gotta also appreciate that from the contractor point of view, it's a fair amount of work to put together a qualified bid too.
Exactly.
So it's, you don't want to just go exercising people for the sake of checking bids necessarily. We
Right.
understand how important it may be. But again, I think that's, again, we really want to, have the task force look at that, understand it among other options. And if that's what the task force decides to do, then that's what the
That's
task
what
force
we'll
will
do.
do.
But a lot of the cost, really the cost, extra cost on the bid is really associated with restrictions and access to the placement site. Because
I know you have said that, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Let me, please finish.
well, let me ask you a question. So out of the cost for the disposal, okay, how much of the charter's cost was associated with dumping sediment afterwards?
So don't quote me on the actual number, but I'm gonna say about, I'd have to have that bit in front of me to say that, but I can tell you that.
It's 120, 30, 40.
128,000. So
Okay.
then the rest was 4.5 million
Yeah,
was to the disposal site. Now dumping at the prison would have cost $40 as a unit. I don't know what a unit costs.
So-
is, but a
so
unit-
Per yard.
it would cost $40 a yard,
Right, but the other
given the
side-
structure of what they were given, right? So
But the thing is, so because the prison was not, they were not able to deal with the prison restriction, because it was like, the prison's gonna open up the sites, they're
3 trucks an
3
hour or something.
right, 3 1-hour slots, but you can have 3 trucks on.
Right.
At any
Yeah.
given time.
Yeah.
So the prison really was not an adequate site, and so then I had to go to some unknown disposal facility that was more like $166.
It's 105, I think,
Yeah,
per yard.
I don't think so. Well,
Yeah.
well, in
the
any
reason I'm
event,
saying that is,
It
I
was.
just got the numbers, 27,000
Yards.
cubic yards, and you divide that into 4.5 million, and that's I think like 166.
No, I think.
no, but they did it by ton.
I think it was
They did it by-
27. Yeah.
No, I was,
You know what,
no,
let's,
actually, I was told.
I
the
don't,
actual Unit was 27.
Yeah, but
It
it's-
is.
I think what Dealey is going is, I think we could probably debate this all night long, but it probably won't get us anywhere, just given where we're at today, and that's why, that's why we really
But
want
the narrative that it was COVID and that was not an accurate narrative.
I would tend to suggest that that's not accurate. I think the description in the minutes were labor, materials, and right,
sediment disposal.
sediment disposal, which was the restriction of the prison at that point in time.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Why are we moving forward at this point?
Right.
We have,
So-
we should be talking to the task force, I should think. at this
Yeah.
moment.
So what I would like to do, and I'm happy, Miguel, if you want to sit down, we can go through that bid. As detailed as you would like. I don't think this is a productive format for that. I think what I would like is if we can hear a little bit more from people about the makeup of this
Sure.
task force, because I think,
Yep.
we've talked about this, that it's really, I think we all feel that it's really important that the task force membership is what's critical to making
course.
people feel like this is, sort of the way that
It's
we
a-
are
it's an
legitimately
appropriate,
moving.
legitimate, balanced approach.
Yeah.
Right? Yes.
One quick comment, that's not exactly about the task force, but it is about balance and
Sure.
objectivity. There's also quite a bit of discomfort with how
EA.
EA is propped up. There seems a conflict of interest, or maybe the opposite. What the opposite of conflict of interest would be, where the group that is recommending dam removal is also the group that has the bids for dam removal. It's also the group that's doing the work. They spent $250,000 of taxpayer money, and it's a little hard to imagine that the work they're doing isn't going to be skewed towards results that will support the work of removing the dam. That's all.
Yeah, I would just correct you. I don't think they're recommending dam removal.
I thought they
No,
did at
well,
the
yeah,
first meeting,
well,
and Harvey Miller, they did.
So their report recommends it, but I think we go through a competitive bid process on every project that is, even if it's under $10,000, we're doing best business practices of, getting at least 3 bids and going with the lowest qualified bidder, something that is over, procurement laws require anything, I think, and I always have to check with procurement people, I think, over a certain amount of money, like all the projects that this relates to, things go out to bid. And so we develop a scope, we put it out, and people, like we did for the dredging, the contract, the work to dredge. People request the proposal, they review it, and if they choose to submit a bid, it's not unusual to get, 15 people asking for the bid and 2 people responding. It happens all the time. And in this case, as with the bid for the dredging, we got 1 bid and it was EA. We could have rejected it, as we did with charters for dredging, because it was not in the interest of the town. But the bid for what EA was proposing was we evaluated, we had a review panel, and if you were on Zoom, if you could mute yourself, please. It was a good bid, and it was something that was determined by the panel to be in the benefit of the town. So it is the same contractor, and I understand that there's like, oh, that looks, it's a bad optic or something like that.
Well, it's not optics. It's just hard to imagine that their findings aren't going to support the work that they are hoping to do.
So
Because
they
what
had
they're
been
doing
they
now-
had been proposing dredging all along.
Sorry.
They had been proposing dredging until, we were working with them to advance the dredging.
It changed really sharp.
And that was because when we got that bid, so it went into, and the bid went out in August, we got it in September. And in September, we got the bid, and I'm talking to EA and saying, we need to go back to the drawing board, because this is how we've been approaching this. It's not feasible at $9 million. We don't even have half that. It's, even if it were 5 million, we have $3 million. So I said, we have to come up with some other ideas. So that was where we came up with dam removal. We knew sediment transport was a big cost. So we said, what if we can just move sediments in the ponds? And so that's where that alternatives analysis discussion.
Oh, it makes sense, but their presentation of Harvey Wheeler would not have been more forcefully supportive of the ecological foundations
Right.
for dam removal. Now, if you say that they were in favor of dredging before the bid came in, seems kind of odd that suddenly their every ecological argument would shift as well. And that's part of what I'm concerned about.
And I feel like that's partly because when we started on this track in 2010 with the watershed management plan, we asked, then it was ESS, that was the consultant we were working with. We want to evaluate every option that's available to us. But dam removal was not considered at that time because the dam had been replaced 2 years before. So it really didn't seem like it was who would even really think about that? But then now we're 20 years later or 10, 15 years later. And well, from my perspective as the natural resources director, I do think about it. And I think, I need to sort of take a step back, and that's okay.
Yep.
I feel like it's such a big change. And I understand that people are just like, where the heck did this come from? So, we are trying, and I'm trying, I'm not maybe very successful, but, I'm trying to, let this just pause and have the task force have this conversation. I mean, dam removal is on the table. It's not something that is, a decided or anything like that. And I hear you. I mean, yes, I think EA came out and they were like, dam removal. I mean, from an ecological perspective, all day long, but there are other considerations that it may not be it may not make the most sense for Warner's Pond. So, let's have that conversation.
And I think it's fair to say that dam removal over the last decade and a half has really come to the fore in a whole host of areas, right, around the country and probably internationally. So, but again, that's just how things evolve, right? So
we have
I
a
think we
question.
are all, if I can speak, which is dangerous, but we are and will be very appreciative of an approach that is truly looking at the possibilities without kind of a preconceived concept of what you may want
Right.
to happen.
Thus,
I would-
thus the
I would
task
really
force.
appreciate
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
thank you.
That's why it's there, yep.
Yes,
So I'm sorry, just, there's somebody who hasn't had
Oh,
a
yeah,
chance to speak
please.
yet on Zoom. So Lisa Terrio, I see that you have your hand raised.
Hi, I'm Lisa Terrio, 118 Wright Road. I have a question and I apologize if it's repetitive. I'm just trying to kind of piece this together. So is EA is the consulting group that the town has hired to make the recommendations for the dam removal, but then also the same contractor that would do the work?
No.
Okay, sorry. This is where I'm confused. And it says EA have a place on is there a role for EA on the task force as like an advisory or anything like that?
No, not as an advisory, but if there were, if the advisory, if the task force says we need some information on, a cost, or, they need to evaluate this alternative, or, this recreational feature should be evaluated, then we would bring in EA to do that, and they may come and present, or, ask, answer questions at, a task force meeting, but they are not a representative on that task force.
I mean, looking at it from the outside view, it just seems like it's a conflict of interest if they're the ones that would actually be hired. I mean, as a resident, I would hope that someone who would be benefiting out of one way or the other is
How are they benefiting?
I don't see that benefiting.
they're getting if there's dam removal. So maybe I'm misunderstanding. So they're the contract, so they would be hired to actually perform the work. Is that correct?
So they're under contract for design and engineering and modeling services.
Okay.
They do cost estimates and things like that. But when we put this out to bid, it goes to contractors who do dredging. It's a specialty, but their design and engineering, they have nothing to do with construction and dredging. That they develop cost estimates that they
Plan specifications.
right, specs, but they don't do the work. There's no, so
No cross.
I understand that, that would be a big conflict of interest if they're doing
Yeah,
it.
thank you for clarifying. Okay. That was my question.
I have to say that through this whole process, I'm learning a lot more about how things work in the town. I didn't know that very much about how the town government works before this. So I don't, when someone submits a green card, is there a public record of that? Is there someplace where you can see
Who submitted?
to be the upstream abutter, the downstream abutter, et cetera, et cetera? When you say that, for instance, an Oris representative has submitted a green card, is there someplace where we can see that?
Yes. Yeah.
I would think if you contacted the town clerk's office,
No, I think I would contact the town office.
yeah,
Right?
the town clerk's office
Yeah.
will have that information.
There may be.
So, I don't think.
No.
It's all public
Yeah,
record.
there's some privacy
It will
things too,
end
I
up,
think.
you put in your green card.
Yeah.
And then, whoever is picking and making up the makeup of the task force, and then that becomes public. Once, when I was on the task force, for West Concord, I was identified as a member of the task force, and it was public knowledge, everybody knows.
Right. I mean, I think it might be a little, I don't know how that is, like, it's almost, I don't know, and maybe.
Mark, do you have any idea?
First, you're calling them volunteer cards now.
Ah. Thank you.
Because there's sometimes a video around on the place, but basically it's your name, address, what you're interested in, and some qualifications. So you can understand that there's a certain amount of personal information, like how to contact you and things like that.
Right.
Typically they're available
The volunteer card database is maintained in the town manager's office and is available to any committee chairperson who needs to recruit for their committee, and there's an automatic process by which the town clerk will notify a committee person if somebody has volunteered to operate in their committee, because people expect to have, they're acknowledged and thanked for one thing, because we always appreciate all the volunteers, including every one of you who's here today. And then we try to maintain a database which is reasonably current. So can you just look at it online? No, but certainly if you have an interest in knowing it, the town staff makes that data available both for recruiting purposes and for information purposes to those people that are trying to fill committees like me. So if you want a job.
So,
Okay.
so,
Yes,
Jeff Collins has had his hand raised for.
sure, Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I think I heard from the public comment in the room an interest in the green card from the ORS representative, and I'm happy to introduce myself as a person who submitted a green card as an ORS representative. I'm the board of ORS. I'm a West Concord resident, 55 Highland Street, and long-term interest in Warner's Pond. So happy to sort of have responded to that solicitation from the task force, formation group here, and introduce myself.
Appreciate your volunteer card.
Thanks, Jeff.
Yes.
David Owen, 281 Lexington Road. Is there going to be some kind of announcement or time window for, people who appear on that list? What's going to be the process? I just want to make sure they respond with the volunteer card if that's what they need to do.
Yeah.
So you wrote an article for the bridge that will be in the paper hopefully this week, and it talks about the task force, and it says the draft is on the NRC website. So there's that, but that gets back to what are we missing here with this task force? Who is another, representative member? We have 10. You suggested land trusts. I'm curious that actually was something that was on the Friends of Warner's Ponds membership charge. So I'm just curious.
I think I got an answer.
You mean in terms of
Okay, so for instance, so I'm on the board of the Concord Scout House.
Yep.
Is there some kind of notification or process, that the Scout House will go through to have that representative? I just want to make sure they don't miss the notification.
So I think, the intention is that this is being reviewed tonight. It will be reviewed again, hopefully finalized at the meeting on the 27th.
Yeah, so subject to, hearing back from CBI and some of their thoughts in regard to the makeup of the task force. So again, more input here from a third party that specializes in facilitating, task force and makeup the task force and assisting with the task force. So, more to come on that as well. We want to get as much input as we can.
But yes, somebody will be reaching out to the representatives.
Yes.
To say, that's a good question in terms of how do you reach out to upstream and downstream abutters?
Since you're there, that was my next question. What's the definition of an upstream, downstream? Where do I fit in where my house is?
You're an upstream abutter.
Upstream. I think it's from the, we're talking about
the dam up.
From the dam.
Oh,
from the dam.
Oh,
yeah.
You're upstream.
Everyone on the pond is
All right.
upstream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
No.
Maybe we'll clarify that in the charge as well. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, just
right.
Yes. That's you, Tracy.
Yeah, so while we're looking at this list, I'm just wondering if you could explain a little bit about the task force at White Pond, what their charges and why.
No, we're not gonna focus on Warner's Pond.
Oh, I know, but I'm just saying because that's another pond with 5.
I don't know anything about the White Pond Task Force and at the moment.
So you guys aren't a part of the White Pond work? Or you are in Warner Pond?
So the White Pond Task Force is a select board appointed task force that was appointed they have a charge. It's on the website. The task force, or the select board felt, I would talk to the select board about that. They developed the charge. They did? We have nothing to do with the White Pond Task Force. We have a lot to do with White Ponds. The natural resources, I mean, the division and NRC, you know, Sachem's Cove, that is partially select board land, but it's managed as conservation lands. We did all the slope restoration work there. We do the APODs, working with the health division. So we do a lot of work at White Ponds. The task force is a select board task force.
Yeah, so because we don't know that reasoning, can you help us understand that?
No?
Yeah.
Well, you just
so
spoke to it,
I
right?
think, I think
Say
the
our land.
spirit of the Monday night select board meeting was to come and talk about the Warner Pond Task Force. I'm personally not that familiar with the White Pond Task Force either. I know it was created a number of years ago to deal with some specific issues that had to do with that neighborhood. And was populated for those reasons. I'm happy to read the chart and see what it is, but I think we have to let the good people at the NRC recognize that it's not their task force. It was created by a previous select board. And so, you know, for those purposes, they are involved in water quality in White Pond, obviously, as one of the issues that they were addressing. So there's some parallel mission, I would imagine, but certainly it's a different place.
All right, yes.
Just a very quick question. The permitting process. So if you were to keep the sediment within the pond, do the permits still apply? Or do you have to?
Only permits.
It's got to be project specific.
All new permits.
Wait, what did you say? They
All new permits if the sediments were to stay in the pond.
Okay. Anybody else on?
I don't see anybody on Zoom. We have one more member that's, I'm hoping we can, you know, hear from people in terms of what, you know, if you could have your druthers, who would you see as that 11th member?
And I say the team members in the pond, the people that live on the pond, there's someone from the West Concord, someone more from the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Have we ever considered climate change representative?
I mean, you could have somebody from Climate Advisory Committee or the Sustainability Director. That's a possibility.
I know we had him as a potential ex officio as well, right? In terms of just that capacity as well.
Yeah.
Maybe if historic is their public works and recreation, like there's planning. I just don't know how things work, but because it's part of a larger picture for what West Concord is, with the FLT, something that's like in that vicinity, part of the larger picture right now.
So planning, I would not, you know, the senior planner is part of the planning division. You know, and I would think, this is just my perspective, but I think that, you know, if you wanted input from somebody from Bruce Freeman, you would reach out and say, hey, could you come to this meeting? We have a specific question. You know, so I think there's going to be a lot of that the task force is doing. But, you know, I think
they could do the same
somebody
with planning.
who's sitting, right. Sorry.
It'd just be FRT and some of those look like they'd be a quick commitment to that space.
Right. Yeah.
I also see there's some benefit with association with White Pond, because I've talked to people there about some of the processes that they have going for removing algae naturally, and would be things that could be replicated out, and there's some really cool science going on there.
So that's we're managing that.
That's some natural resources.
We're managing that program.
Yeah. And again,
But
that's
it's cool. Yeah.
It is good.
And to your point, that's something the task force can further explore. Sure. You know, management issues as well as,
right,
you know, a capital project issue over there.
Right.
So.
Yep.
Thank you for your input. All very helpful.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
I have one more thing, actually.
Sure, why not?
Very beginning.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't sure. It wasn't about the task force, that's right.
So, and this is just kind of a very basic thing. I had done a map. And Delia, you were talking about the committee that was going to look at other expectations of what happened after the
after the pond, disappears, you know, after the pond was to disappear, what would be the ramifications, you know, what would life look like then and stuff. And I think that the one thing we haven't really heard enough of is basically what does that do for developable land across, you know?
Oh, yep.
And that's, but that's, the thing is, you know, once a decision is made, I understand it's town meeting, once recommendations are made, if a decision's made to take down the pond, and you all are kind of gone, that people in West Concord have to live with that decision. So I don't think it's unreasonable for us, especially in light of, I mean, we're getting slammed with development all up and down Main Street, you know, Main Street mostly, and in the center. I don't think it's unreasonable for us to kind of try to understand what's going to happen with regards to developable land. Now, this is very.
So can I just say what will happen?
Please.
Yeah.
So this is Warner's Ponds. You can see the underlying Warner's Ponds and overlaying that is a green layer that is town conservation lands. So all of those parcels were acquired for conservation purposes. Okay, so they are protected under Article 97.
And you can
of-
guarantee that that will never be switched development, because that does seem to happen and developers.
So what that would take is unanimous approval from this board. It would take 2/3 vote of town meeting. And it would take 2/3 vote of the state legislature to overturn that. And that is one thing. And the second thing is that this layer that I'm putting on now is the wetlands layer. That is not changing regardless of the disposition. So if this pond is, if that dam is removed, that wetlands may slightly change, but not this, the land around Warner's Pond is still going to be wetlands. And commission.
So you can build within the wetland.
You could not.
You could not.
I know you cannot build in a wetland, but I mean, you have.
This
that-
will never be uplands.
Okay, so first of all, the first thing you were saying about the 2/3 and.
Yep,
and all that,
the Article
is that something
97.
that can be written for the public that.
I
that
think,
is-
you know what we should do is, I mean, I'll ask town council to provide a written opinion on that Article
Yeah, that
97
would go a long
protection.
way. Sure. I'm still not sure about this based on what I heard of other stuff, but that first thing is the most important. So,
Yeah.
like I said,
I think that's a good idea, Delia, if you could ask me to take a look at that and
Yeah.
maybe lay it out so people have, you know, just know the background and
Right.
are more confident in terms of the
Right.
preservation of the area, regardless of whatever.
you said I'm still on family. Yeah.
That's fine.
Understood.
So be it. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Thank you.
All right, back to our agenda this evening. No, we are at certificate of compliance.
Okay. We are.
Close the issue.
We didn't close an issue? Thank you. So we're back to close an issue.
Okay, this is,
That's what I missed.
you didn't miss it. Yes, the
Elsin-
demo,
this is
Elsinore demo and rebuild.
I think I have that.
Excuse me, if you wouldn't mind, we have to.
Guys,
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Hey, folks, can you talk outside, out there, please? Yeah.
thank you, Bill.
All right.
Far away.
So I move that we close and issue an order of conditions with findings A and B for DEP file 1371655 at 127 Elsinore Street. With findings A and B with standard conditions 1 through 20 and special conditions 21 through 56.
Second,
On the vote, Bill?
Aye.
Sarah?
aye.
And I'm an aye. Certificates of compliance now.
Okay, so a partial for 65 Madison Drive, and that was for the work that was completed with the diffusers put in and They, as you know, they came earlier this evening for their continuance to continue the work there with the pond treatments. But this partial is just for the work that's already been completed.
Okay.
Take it
Brad-
in- take it as a group.
Yeah.
Let's take it as a group. Yeah.
Bragdon was for a deck construction, and I'm gonna let Bert go through the three remaining.
So there's the two from Concord Country Club, one of which was to replace some irrigation pipes under a stream. And the other was for some invasive species removal around a vernal pool. I'm not sure which number is which, that's what they were for. Those are both good. Everything was done according to plans, and 26 Elm Street was for reconstruction of a garage, some reduction of impervious area where they had some condensers. That site looked good, everything stabilized. Good.
Great. So if I could get a motion for
So my
those.
turn.
Go ahead, go for it. You say the best for last year.
Okay, I move that we issue certificates of compliance for DP file 1371491, which is a partial. Do I have to say the name as well? Isn't it?
No, just the
The DP file number 1371481, DP file 1371539, DP file 1371309, and DP file 1371549.
In a second.
I second that.
Thank you, sir. Bill? Aye. Sarah?
Aye.
And I am an aye as well. And lastly, administrative approvals.
So, land trust, we're taking off and recommending that they submit RDA for that work. And Concord Green, a couple of trees.
Concord Green, yeah, they had a few birch trees to be removed. There's 3 in total. Just where they are, didn't recommend any replacements. They're native, but where they're placed, they're really more like ornamentals.
Yeah.
But they're in pretty rough shape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Concord Green had provided all those tree locations. Wow.
That was also
And they
part of
said
it
that
too.
Some of that was coming.
Yeah, they're gonna be doing some extensive planting out there anyways, so.
Great.
Yes.
Okay, I think we're good with that. Thank you.
Before we close, I realized that for one of them, we didn't actually call out the finding. Is that something we could have done? We made a
For the
I
red.
realized I had it.
That's
and
for
then
the
you don't-
wetland
the
flag.
override. I
I
saw
mean,
the records.
I think we accepted the plan that was in
Yeah,
front of us. So I think
right,
that
we
was
did.
good.
I think that's
We
okay.
did.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And with that, we are adjourned.
That's it.